Hi there, and welcome back to another episode of the Sitting in a Car videocast. I'm Sarah, and I'm here answering another question from a parent about sexuality, parenting, and our kids. So this week's question comes from a mum who has 4 kids, 4 boys actually. The eldest is 12, the second one is 10, and then she's got an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old. And she was at one of my talks that I give to parents at primary schools, and she heard me say that young children are far more receptive to having conversations about anything to do with sex than older kids, because they haven't yet developed that squick factor, or they haven't sort of internalized that idea that sex is bad or wrong or dangerous. So she went home and she started to have conversations with her younger kids. She bought one of the great books that I recommend by Roby Harris. And then she encountered a bit of a problem because her kids were starting to ask more questions, her 2 younger kids. She was starting to be more open about her answers and initiating conversations about anything to do with sex around and about in the public space of the house. And her 2 older kids started to say things like, "Oh, you're so weird. Mom, stop. This isn't right." And their reaction started to influence the 2 younger boys, and she was worried about it. So she got back to me with this question. The question is, what should I do? Should I plow on and hope that the older guys get used to it and all will be well? Or should I pull back? I'm totally confused. Right, so I love this question. What I love about it is that it demonstrates that young kids do actually find it really easy to have conversations about this stuff, and it's not until our kids get older that they start developing this squick factor or this internal sensor that says, no, this isn't right, parents shouldn't be doing this sort of thing. So I suggested 5 things for this mum. The first thing was to take her 2 older kids aside, either together or individually, and apologize to them and say that that really it's not their fault that this experience, that they're having these feelings. It's completely understandable because when they were young, that we didn't set the ground rules or make it clear that sex is something that we can talk about because sex is normal and sex is just part of being human. Then the second thing is to say that we've learnt new information. So when they were young, I was working on the assumption or the understanding that you shouldn't talk about sex with kids, but now I realize that is the case, and now I know it's important that kids from all age need to start developing an understanding about what being sexual is like and further accurate information. Then, after you've apologized and after you've told them that you understand why they're reacting like this, the third thing is to acknowledge that now there's a problem in the house because they've learnt to be embarrassed, the 2 older kids, and the 2 younger kids are not embarrassed. And in fact, you realize now that kids don't need to be embarrassed about sexuality. And so these conversations need to continue on, and you're correcting your past mistakes. So that's the third thing to say. Acknowledge that there's this disconnect in the house, or this problem. Two different sort of groups of people have 2 different needs. So the fourth thing then to do is invite them to solve the problem with you. So we're getting clear. The non-negotiable is these conversations do need to happen. This information needs to be imparted. We all need to get more comfortable with conversation like this because it's going to hold us in good stead for the rest of our lives. So you would like to hear their suggestions of what we could do differently or what we could do next. That's the 4th point. So you're inviting them in for collaboration, hearing what they have to say. And you can certainly have put suggestions in as to what the sort of the solution to this could be. It could be about when the timing of these conversations that happen. Maybe the older kids want to have these conversations when the younger kids aren't there. That could be one idea. Maybe they want these conversations to happen by text message instead of verbally, and that could certainly be an option. So just collect all the different solutions that the kids come up with, that you can come up with, and this will take a while. Might take one sit down 45-minute meeting to collate all those things, and then maybe another sit down time together a few days later where you can sort of thrash through what are the solutions that work best for everyone. Then the fifth point is that keep in mind that this is going to take time, that they have, in the case of the 12-year-old, 12 years worth of living with one set of rules, so one set of normalness. And in the case of the 10-year-old, 10 years of living like that. So it's not going to happen overnight that they're going to be able to just sort of flick the switch in their brain and this new normal is going to be fine. It's going to could take, you know, a year. I don't think it will take a year. I think if you engage them in collaboration and you work slowly towards this new goal, they're going to very quickly come to realize that this new normal is actually useful. And the other thing to do, so accept it's going to take time, and then describe to them why this is important, particularly if you live in Ireland, in the Irish culture. So we have a lot of stories in Ireland about some of the negative consequences of living in a culture where things to do with sex were not spoken about. People being sent away because of their behavior and being ostracized from the community. People dying because they were giving birth in a private place as a teenager and they didn't feel able to ask for help from anyone. So there's a lot of significant negative impacts about this. We may even have stories from our own family life that has convinced us that these conversations are important. So get the older kids on board with that. Start to tell them their history and where they come from and why that means that these conversations are even more important to have. Focus on the positives when you're doing that. You can say, we know better now, our world is changing, and this is why these skills are so important. So that's 5 different points that will help you if you are in the same situation as this mum, where you have young kids that are really open to having conversations about sex and relationships and consent, and older kids who have already internalized and developed that idea that these conversations are not normal to have. You're doing great out there, parents. Well done. Keep it up. Keep listening to more accurate information about how to have these conversations and what to have these conversations about. I'll see you next week.